As we are here at another Global Accessibility Awareness Day, as you think back on the last year in accessibility, are there any victories or losses, steps forward or backward, things that kind of resonate with you that happened over the last year?
Awareness around accessibility has certainly reached, in many cases, a much more mainstream place. Um, the action around accessibility is now the question. And so we looked at the top 50 apps across iOS and Android in 5 different industries, kind of diverse industries, to try to understand what is the current state of accessibility when it comes to native mobile apps. And what we found was uh, disappointing, but not surprising. You asked about steps forward, steps back, and what we found in looking at 200 different user journeys across these 50 apps is that almost 3 out of 4 of those user journeys delivered a poor or failing user experience for users of assistive technology in at least one step of the user journey, which can result in drop off and attrition and failure to convert and all the things that businesses care about. Um, and so, kind of coming back to the question of, do we have we made progress? I would say the awareness has definitely made progress. It's part of the conversation now in ways that it didn't used to be, but the execution is still where lots of teams struggle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, right? If everything is accessible inside of your app, but then you get to one area that is not, that could be a deal breaker, right?
Yeah,
If I can make my way to your product and add it to the cart, but the actual cart itself is not accessible, then what good is it, right? So having any
right.
breakdown in that user journey, to your point, could cause folks to go away, right? I would if I couldn't use the cart on an e-commerce site or app.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we looked at in the report. In addition to kind of our internal testing with our team of accessibility experts, we have a team that has been doing accessibility in mobile apps for a number of years now, but we don't have a large team of users with disabilities. So we actually partnered with usability testing company Fable to
Mhm.
bring users with disabilities into the assessment and analysis and kind of provide not just validation of what we found in our internal testing, but giving that additional color and clarity and awareness around the actual impact, the real user impact of those findings. And that's what we found is that, when an app is really only as good as its point of highest frustration.
Yep.
And so, we found that even one step in that core user journey in those apps could be the difference between a sale or a conversion or retaining the user or not.
Can you tell us what the GAAD Foundation is, what they do, and kind
Mhm.
of what your role with them is like?
Yeah, so I am on the board of directors of the GAD Foundation. The board has members like me who come from different organizations, and we serve a 3-year term on the board. And we try to bring the message of GAD and the kind of amplification of accessibility outside of just the accessibility community. Lots of incredibly skilled, talented, passionate professionals all working on accessibility. But we find that the most important thing is that we can't just be preaching to the choir of people who already recognize the value of accessibility. We've got to be talking to the business leaders. We've got to be talking to the founders and engineers and designers who haven't heard about it yet and don't know what it's for, and maybe or maybe if they have heard about accessibility, see it as something that slows them down in their creative or development process. The other thing that the GAD Foundation does is help amplify those events that are being held around the world uh, within organizations, either publicly or privately, to uh, to recognize and raise that awareness of accessibility within those organizations. And then the last one is the GAAD pledge, which every year GAAD Foundation works with one organization that takes a pledge to make, and it's typically something like a foundational uh, framework or platform that many developers use across products and across companies. GAAD Foundation will work with that framework to make that foundational platform more accessible, so that that's kind of a key leverage point in the building of accessible products, is that the building blocks become more accessible, and therefore teams that may not even know um, as much about how to build accessibly get the benefit of those building blocks being more accessible themselves.
That's fantastic. I couldn't agree with you more, right? If you can work with the platform developers and vendors to
Mhm.
ensure that the platforms themselves are accessible and promote developing accessible content, it makes all the difference, right? We at Alliant work quite closely with Shopify on the accessibility of their platform, and if you are creating a website kind of out of the box, it has a lot of those accessibility enhancements baked right in, and it's a great way to get accessibility at scale.